Let's take a look at the second half of Chapter 7. Remember, this chapter had a lot of trig identities. Make sure that they're all on your note card. We had the songs, which are the sum and difference. After that, we had the doubles, and the double angle ones come from the sum and difference. And then we had the uglies, which were the half angle ones. So make sure that you know all of those to calculate. We also used the unit circle, so no calculator for this section. Let's evaluate. 80 and 20 are not angles I'm familiar with from the unit circle. And this looks really complicated here. Cosine, cosine, sine, sine. That sounds like a song, okay? This is the sum and difference songs. And if it starts with the word cosine, it's going to be a cosine formula. And I know that the angles are 80 and 20 degrees. 80 and then 20, 80 then 20. So this is 80, 20. The question is, what kind of sign do you put right there? The cosine song goes cosine, cosine, sine, sine. So since you have a clap, it's going to be a switcheroo, which makes this a minus. Let's keep going here. This is going to be cosine of 60 degrees, which I'm very familiar with from the unit circle, and that's going to be 1/2. So please study that unit circle and, of course, all these formulas. Number 2, let's evaluate using sum and difference. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to calculate the sine of two things. So put parentheses around the angle, and then right here in these parentheses, I'm going to put two equivalent angles that make this. Okay, so right here you still write the word sine, but it's going to be something plus something that makes 5 pi out of 12. So let's write 12ths, and I'll write the pi's. And let's see, how can I make a 5? I think maybe 3 out of 12. Do we know that one? Yes. And then 2 out of 12. I think I found two angles that I know from the unit circle that I could use to evaluate 5 pi out of 12. So let's go ahead and reduce those here. This is going to be sine of pi over 4 plus pi over 6. Let's just double check. Are you sure you know both of those from the unit circle? Good. Okay. Do you distribute the sign in? No, 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 no. This is a sum and difference problem. So this is the song again. And it goes sine, cosine, cosine, sine. There's the song. The sine song does not have any clapping, so if this is a plus, you're going to put a plus. Pi over 4 and then pi over 6. Pi over 4 and then pi over 6. These are multiply, and between is a plus. All right, what is sine of pi over 4? Radical 2 over 2 times cosine of pi over 6. That's radical 3 over 2. Cosine for pi over 4 is also rad 2 over 2. And sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Okay, let's just refresh your fraction work. When you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply across. Top with top, bottom with bottom. Okay, so I've got radical 6, and that's over 4. And then over here, radical 2 times 1 is radical 2, and that's over 4, so they have a common denominator of 4. Okay, look at the answers when you're taking your final to kind of remind you of how it looks and what the answers, should at least look like. Okay, find the exact value using half angle formulas. All right, you're going to have to follow the directions to make sure you do it the right way because, well, this one has to be a half angle. But if you do sum and difference when it's supposed to be half, the answers don't look the right way. Okay, so to do a half angle, let's just remind everyone these are the uglies. Okay, super, super ugly. It always really helped for us to say what the half was. So this is the half, and then what's the full angle? I'll just take 112.5 and double it, and that makes 225. Okay, the half is an angle you don't know, but the full should be one you do know from the unit circle. Okay, now what does the formula look like? The uglies. Plus or minus, big square root. A fraction in the denominator is a 2. And then they're both 1 cosine of x, which is the full angle x. If you're doing a cosine problem, same, it gets a plus. Okay, so the full angle goes in right there. And then how do you know what to pick? The half angle will help you pick the outside sine. Okay, let's get this started here. So my half is 112.5, and that is in quadrant, quadrant 2 right here. So here's where we have the half. So cosine right here, I'm going to pick the negative sign. Okay, inside it's going to be 1 plus cosine of, and then you write the full angle, 225. All right, now we just have to do unit circle and some cleaning up. I have the square root of 1 plus cosine 225. Where is 225? Past 180. It's a 5er, so it's in the middle. And that is going to be negative radical 2 over 2. Okay, every single time we did these problems, we always took a red pen out and we changed 1 into 2 over 2. How should I write 2 over 1? I'm going to make this be 4 over 2. So now we have negative square root of 2 minus radical 2. Why am I making all these denominators of 2? So they can just all cancel out. And in the denominator, I have a 4. But that 4 can come out of the radical. So I'm going to write a smaller radical and write it as 2 minus radical 2. And the 2 is outside the radical. Okay. Sometimes books or tests will have the 2 in the denominator. This is actually divide by 2 1/2. So sometimes we see it like this. That 2 goes first, and then it's just a little radical sign, 2 minus radical 2. Just in case you see something typed a different way, that is equivalent. Okay, do we have any more for this chapter? How about a half angle problem where we are given some information and we have to draw a picture. We have to make sure we get this picture in the correct quadrant. Okay, so let's just draw our axes. 3 over 2 is right here. 2 pi is right here. They want me to put it between those two places, so they want it in quadrant 4. Put your pencil on the origin, into the quadrant, directly to the x-axis. Okay, so that's where theta is. That's a full theta. And then here's a fact. Cosine is 2 over 3. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So 2 and a 3. And then we'll have to do Pythagorean theorem to find that other side. So let's see. 2 squared plus b squared equals 3 squared. B squared equals 9 minus 4 is 5. So that side must be the square root of 5. Except stop right there. A lot of people get so excited they found the answer, they forget a very important thing to add on to the triangle when it's going down. You have to put the negative sign all by yourself. If it's going right, you don't need one, but downs and lefts need them. Hypotenuse is always positive. Okay, now let's get started. I have to find a half angle for tangent. Let's see, where is the half? If the full is in quadrant 4, full angle theta, then the half is going to be in quadrant 2. Here's where the half is located, just so you know. If you can't remember where they go, pick a number in here like 300 degrees, chop it in half and say, where's 150? Anything from 3 and 4, when you cut it in half, goes to 2. Anything from 1 and 2, when you cut it in half, goes to 1. Okay, check and see if you have those rules on your note card. All right, how does the half angle for tangent look? There's a couple of formulas. He's not so ugly if you use that one I always recommended. It's a fraction. You don't have to pick the plus minus, and it goes like this. 1 minus cosine of the full, this is half, this is full, divided by sine of the full. Okay, and how do I know what cosine of the full angle theta is? I look at the picture. All right, 1 minus. What's cosine of theta? 2 over 3. Sine of angle theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Negative radical 5 over 3. All right, I know what I'm going to do to that 1. I'm going to make him be 3 over 3. That's a lot of 3's. The reason I want all the denominators to match is so denominators can cancel with denominators. So I have 3 minus 2 divided by negative radical 5. Well, 3 minus 2 is just 1 divided by negative radical 5, which I will not leave like that. I'll say negative square root of 5 over 5. Okay, look at the answers. If the answers are rationalized on the final exam, then you rationalize your answer. Okay, we have some solving here. Okay, the last thing that we did in this chapter was solve trig equations. Do any baby algebra that you can. Okay, this says solve in the interval from 0 to 2 pi. Sometimes it says 0 is less than or equal to theta less than 2 pi. Okay, and then what that means is they want you to make the chart. Okay, if it says in general, then they just want you to make the equation. Okay, so this one wants a chart, and then this one down here is going to get an equation. All right, baby algebra, I'll add 1. Sine squared of 3 theta is 1. Okay, any more baby algebra? Let's square root both sides. So sine of 3 theta equals, come on, don't forget this, plus or minus 1. Okay, can you divide by 3? No, don't mess up the angle. Keep it the way it is. So now it's unit circle time. Where is sine plus or minus 1? And the answer is up or down. How many equations are we going to make? We're going to make one equation. Okay, the name of the angle is 3 theta. So 3 theta is where? Starting at pi over 2 plus or minus a distance of pi n. Okay, and now we're going to divide everything by 3. So that's pi over 6 plus or minus pi over 3n. If it said solve in general, you'd stop right there. Okay, but since it said solve in the interval, we're going to make a chart. I'm going to go like this. To make the solving easy, maybe we should make common denominators here. So let's make this be 2 out of 6. Okay, here we go. When n is 0, we have pi over 6. When n is 1, we're going to take 1 out of 6 plus 2 out of 6 to get 3 pi over 6, which can simplify to pi over 2. N is 2. I like to just keep taking the previous answer and adding on another 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5 pi out of 6. And then plus 2 more is 7 pi out of 6. And then 9 pi out of... How much out of 6 is too much? The answer is 12. Can I fit another one? Yeah, let's keep going. 11 pi out of 6. So I was able to do all the way down to n equals 5. Okay, you want to make sure your answers go from small to big. If this was a test with paper pencil, you'd want to put them in braces. We're going to want to reduce this one to say 3 pi over 2. Okay, but here's all your answers. Okay, the last solving one. Let's solve in general. Solve in general. Oh no, how am I going to solve this? There's sines and cosines. Okay, this doesn't match. The angles have to match, the trig function has to match. So who's going to come out? Okay, the sine squared. Sine squared has to be replaced. I can use those Pythagorean identities. Remember the one you have to have memorized? Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Let's use that one. Sine squared would be 1 minus cosine squared. Okay, so let's go ahead and replace that then. 1 minus 2. These parentheses are going to be replaced. Minus cosine of theta equals 0. Okay, the parentheses are important. Just organize this here so that I can distribute anything in this case, a negative 2. So sine squared is 1 minus cosine squared of theta. Okay, well now they're all cosines, they're all thetas. I see it's cosine squared and then a cosine. So it looks like I have a trinomial here. I'm going to write it in descending order. 1 distributed negative 2 is minus 2 plus 2 cosine squared minus cosine of theta is 0. So in descending order, it's minus cosine theta minus 1. Okay, how do you solve something when it's a quadratic trinomial? We're going to have to factor. Don't forget the 0. So 2 cosine theta times cosine theta is the firsts. My lasts need to be 1 times 1 to make a 1. And I'm going to have to put a minus sign somewhere to make a negative. Let's put a plus and a minus. Let's go like that. So cosine of theta is negative 1/2, and cosine of theta is 1. After you get it all the way down to there, it's little mini unit circle time. Okay, where is cosine negative? Cosine is negative in quadrant 2 and in quadrant 3. And that happens at the pi over 3's. So this is 2 pi over 3, 3 out of 3, 4 out of 3. Where's cosine 1? Just this one place. I'm going to have to write 3 separate equations. So the angle's theta. Theta is 2 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi n. Theta equals 4 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi n. Theta equals 0 plus or minus 2 pi n. And that is how you solve trig equations. Alright, please make sure you do this assignment very carefully. This was one of the trickiest chapter I think we studied, but I know you guys can do it. Good luck.